Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled Sherborn School Committee meeting for June 14th, 2018.
Second.
I am opening the meeting because this is a reorganization meeting. So I would like to accept nominations for a chairperson of our committee.
I'd like to nominate Kate Potter as chairperson.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The gavel is yours.
Official. Thank you very much, and welcome to everyone. My second order of business is I would like to nominate Angie Johnson for the position of secretary for the Sherborn School Committee. Are there any seconds?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Great. We are reorganized. Thanks, Angie.
Thank you.
And I would like to welcome Amanda Brown and Megan Page. Very excited to have you. And I'm excited to have everybody back. Jennifer back and Angie moving around more. It's going to be a good year. Next order of business is public comments. There being none, let's move on to the administration reports. Can we start with Dr. Brown?
Well, it's been and still is a very busy time of year. We just left a sea of students and parents enjoying ice cream at the end of the year social. I wanted to lift two things that were especially exciting this week, hot off the press. Our fifth graders enjoyed their 3-day naturalist / team building personal challenge experience at Hill Reservation. I went one day, and I know Jackie went one day, and we always offer it up to teachers of younger grade levels to chaperone as well. So several of our specialists, Miss Sidman, Miss Ritchie, attended on different days. So it's a heartfelt, culminating activity for our fifth graders. Another exciting thing that happened just yesterday is that Pine Hill was in receipt of over $50,000 worth of grant awards from Dover Sherborn Education Fund, about $25,000 specific to Pine Hill, and then another $26,000 grant that we generated and ended up partnering with Chickering and the middle school. It has to do with technology integration. So we are really excited to be able to bring some of our new ideas to fruition next year, and we'll let you know in more detail as those become solidified. Any questions about other things on the report?
I didn't have any. Did anybody else? Thank you. Thank you. All right. Moving right along. Thank you.
I will say,
yes.
very much appreciate the tweets that Jackie puts out. Those are awesome. And I loved seeing the kids performing, what was it?
Oh, the Lewis and Clark.
The Lewis and Clark, and my daughter, who's now 23, said, "I remember that song," on Twitter for everyone to see. She's so proud. It was awesome. They do so much fun stuff for the kids that really sticks with them. So, and this is a crazy time of year, though. Very busy, I know. So thank you.
Quick and easy.
Great. All right. Thank you. Ms. McCoy.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the new members. So I don't know where to begin. It's, as Dr. Brown said, a very busy time of year. We're finishing up with lots of celebrations across the district. I've had the opportunity to attend several events at Pine Hill and at other schools. I'm finding myself extra emotional this year, and I'm not sure if that's because I'm now a resident parent and educator, or if it's just I'm twice as tired. But it's very exciting, and the kids have grown so much, and it's just such an a testament to the teachers and the leadership at Pine Hill. So thank you for all that you do. In the meantime, we're busy planning for next year. The strategic plan is well underway. We had a leadership team meeting on Wednesday, and we are continuing to break it down into action steps and timelines and identifying what the benchmarks and evidence are going to be. And even since Wednesday, what's today? Thursday. In 24 hours since we had that meeting, I've had a number of meetings with curriculum leaders, administrators, department heads at the high school, and all of the pieces seem to be falling into place. Program directors, administrators will say, we're thinking about this for next year, and I'll tie all the pieces together and say, I just had a discussion with Nick Grout at the high school, and we just had Apple in yesterday. So it's just such an exciting time that beyond all the exhaustion, we're still carrying some enthusiasm forward next year, and it's all tied together with strategic plan. So I had outlined some of the highlights of next year, including the portrait of the graduate, which seems like far off for our Pine Hillers, thinking about what graduation will look like. But as we know, Pine Hill is an important part of that. At graduation, there was 2 mentions of Pine Hills in the senior speeches, and one of the songs that they learned from Miss Hodge, as well as another mention that I can't remember exactly. But the portrait of a graduate is not only going to outline the skills that we want our 12th graders to lead with in the real world, such as critical thinking, collaboration, communication, but we as a district are going to break that down into what does that look like in 11th and 12th grade, 7th and 8th grade, kindergarten and first grade. So it's all tied together and all very exciting work. And, as Dr. Brown mentioned, with your approval and the support of the DSEF, we have an opportunity to bring 5 leaders to Finland next year so that we can continue to think about how we can grow and improve as a district. We understand what our neighboring towns are doing, and we're always looking, nationally on how we can improve. But this is an opportunity to think globally and how we can start to prepare our students for what's becoming a shrinking world upon their graduation. So those are the highlights, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I would just add, if I may,
please.
that the grants really from the DSEF are truly amazing. If they're always this generous, I don't know what to say. It's amazing. And the grants for the trip to Finland, I think, is going to serve us really well. I think it's a great opportunity for our leadership to see, to visit those schools, to visit their schools of education, to perhaps visit the education ministry and learn what it is that has made them so successful, because they have tremendous success and yet don't give very much homework at all. They don't level. It's a remarkable place. I have to admit, I went once upon a time as a principal, and it was truly life-changing for me as a school leader. So I'm thrilled that we've been able to gain their support. We needed to explain exactly why this will be beneficial to us, but I do think it will influence us forevermore. And frankly, to that end, last night, Mr. Kellett, the middle school principal, talked about extending the lunch period so that kids have more downtime. This is something that I've been absolutely hot on since I went to Finland. So that's an example of something that I took back from Finland, because their kids at the elementary level could have 2 recess periods of close to an hour each per day. They really know and understand the importance of giving kids free time and giving kids time to interact socially. So I think they're going to get so much out of that, and I'm really, really, really appreciative of the folks who donated to DSEF and the organization itself. So I just had to point that out. I'm sorry.
That's very exciting. And when is that trip?
We're aiming for March. Yes. We'll have some
There's
time
a
to
certain
bring.
time of year you want to stay away from family.
Yeah, I was going to say that could be cold. I did have a question. You mentioned the Academic Excellence Committee, soon to be the Academic Innovation Committee.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just speak to that a little bit? Who does that involve?
Sure. Prior to now, it was the Academic Excellence Committee, and I think it kind of got put on hold during all the transition. So the idea is coming back together, and instead of looking at excellence, which we know we have achieved, but looking at how we want to define ourselves against other variables, such as innovation, hence the trip to Finland and the portrait of a graduate. There'll be a smaller steering committee that will probably include parents and community members. School committee obviously is welcome to join, administrators, teachers, perhaps a few students. But we will have a larger visioning summit that'll come together and talk about really what these graduate skills should be, and identify what those buckets will be. And then the smaller committee will come back together and kind of divide up by topic or theme and bring it back to the relevant STEAM team or English department or whatnot to further develop what the rubrics are going to look like, what the tasks will look like, and how we're going to measure them. It'll be ongoing. I don't foresee it disappearing anytime soon.
And you will be able to have a school committee rep from Sherborn on that committee.
On the smaller group.
On that
On the
committee,
bigger-
right, that's,
On the smaller group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Does anybody else have questions about Ms. McQuay's report? Okay, thank you. Exciting things. Dr. Q.
Yes. So as you hopefully had a chance to note in my superintendent report, we have some very good news with regard to our special education audit, which is something that we've discussed in the strategic planning process, as it fell into that category of our resource efficiency and effectiveness, using our resources as effectively as possible. We have felt that when the reorg was done a few years ago, the feedback has been there's still some I's that need to be dotted, some T's crossed, and it's just a great opportunity when you can bring someone in from outside to really dig deeply into how we operate and to share their insights with us. So we were able to reach out to a woman named Dorsey Yearley, who Amanda may remember from Wellesley. She was probably there in your first year. She was a longtime special ed director of the Wellesley Public Schools, has 29 years experience there, was also the executive director of EDCO, the collaborative. She is very, very sharp, very knowledgeable about special education law and how best to meet the law. She understands and appreciates fully, as do I, the concept of least restrictive environment. So trying to educate our kids as close to the general ed population as possible. And so she's going to look at our programs, K-12, pre-K to 12 actually, Dover and Sherborn and the regional, and offer a report to us. She's agreed to begin this as early as this summer. So we will have, we're going to try and arrange our administrative interviews, and in fact, some teacher interviews if at all possible. That's still early in the development stage, but we are hoping that we can bring teachers back for certain days. It's almost a professional development experience because it is actually helpful for them to process what it is they do. And she's going to then come in and look at the programs in action in early fall and give us a list of recommendations, findings and recommendations. I spoke with the superintendent from Medfield, Jeff Marsden, today. They just went through this entire process. He said it was invaluable. And so we're really excited about that and just so thrilled that she's willing to do this. I also wanted to just give you a quick security audit update. Folks ask me all the time. It's been a lengthy process. They spent a lot of time in our schools, the Synergy Solutions folks, a lot of time at Pine Hill. In fact, went back to Pine Hill recently, maybe a week ago.
last week.
Last week, was it? And, they too want to be sure that they're being very thorough in looking at our facilities and just thinking through by talking with people about what's working in terms of the security of the building and what might not be so great or ideal. And they are going to they've been sharing their findings. We're going to share some of those initial findings with the three committees tomorrow evening in executive session. This is it?
Monday.
I'm sorry. Yeah, not tomorrow.
Thank you. I was
I don't even know where that came from. Monday
Just ready
night.
to
Monday
go.
night, sorry. Yes, Monday night.
Don't skip over the weekend.
So I don't think people will be shocked by what they hear. I think that most people feel that Pine Hill School is actually in very good shape. The campus at the regional school is a bigger question, and so, but we'll go through these preliminary recommendations tomorrow night, and hopefully can begin some of the.
Monday night.
Jeez, why do I keep saying that? Monday night. That is weird.
You really want to be with us all tomorrow night.
Sorry about that. So anyway, so that's good news, that is finally coming together. And we will be doing our trainings in the fall, as I've mentioned before, very early September, so we're excited about that. I wanted to give an update on the preschool situation. I mentioned last time that there were growing concerns with the number of students in the preschool. The space is fairly tight. Remember, this is an integrated preschool. Some of the students have some pretty significant challenges. Things like auditory processing can be challenging for these kids, and in a tight space where there's noise from lots of little kids, that can be an actual impediment to their learning. So we've also, become aware of students who are going to be joining us next year that we hadn't anticipated, and we want to make sure that the program is meeting the needs of all of our students. So I am suggesting that we add a 0.6 teacher and a 0.6 EA, recognizing that we did not put that in the FY19 budget. We have done some calculations and believe that we can cover the costs for these additional folks for this 1 year through our special education our pre-K revolving account. So I think it's the right thing to do, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that was happening. We also are going to reconfigure. Barbara's arranged some classes a little differently for next year in order for us to have an additional space to spread the kids out a little bit. So thank you for your help with that, Barbara.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
So we anticipate at this point that would be an extra section just for a year.
For a year, yes.
Most of our students will be matriculating to kindergarten the following year,
Yeah.
and we'll be able to control
Yep.
proactively how many new students we accept through the tuition model, so.
So we can leave more of a buffer for those that may be unanticipated. Yeah.
We're happy to have these students. It may mean looking at kindergarten and how we provide services in kindergarten next year. So that'll be a budget conversation for sure, or perhaps. But certainly we will want to know one way or the other if there's going to be a need for additional support in kindergarten, which may come from the pre-K.
Right.
But that would have a budget impact. So
In the room's no problem. There's enough room
for
for next year.
next year, yes.
Remember, we dropped a section in fourth grade, so I
Right.
That's
can do a little wiggling.
Yep. So, but any other questions on the preschool? I hope I covered it. Okay. Okey-doke. Yes, I just wanted to share what a wonderful commencement ceremony we had last week on Thursday. It was a beautiful evening. I have to say it was surreal for me. Almost 38 years to the day from my own graduation in that very same location, and I would argue it's the same stage. But I can't be sure. You don't turn those in, you don't trade those in very often.
No.
They don't get used that much. So it was a great night, though. The students' speeches were spectacular. I want to thank George Morrow from the Board of Selectmen for speaking and addressing the kids as well. And I actually have brought the program to share with you because I think you will see names that you recognize. And I hope I brought enough.
I have one.
You do? Okay.
Anna Scott went.
Oh, okay, good, perfect. So,
She loved it. She liked your speech.
oh, thanks. It was a great event. So congratulations to our Pine Hill graduates. I also wanted to commend, actually, Laurie Ryan, who's here tonight, for the reading day at Pine Hill. I had a wonderful time. I was sort of a celebrity. That doesn't happen every day. It was like a big deal. And
May I interject? The Friday before at all-school meeting, the kids did an infomercial about the excitement around the upcoming reading day. And they said, we heard Miss Ryan even invited celebrities. And the kids said, some of the new Beyonce kinds of folks. And no, the superintendent and the Sherborn tax collector.
perhaps that's why they've grown when I came in. But
It was cute.
I shared some of my favorite classic books that I used to read to my children. That was one of my assignments when we had young ones. I would read to them every night, and I shared some of those gently used books with the kids, and they are just timeless classics. And it really didn't matter what grade I was reading to, the kids just loved them. So I had such a good time. So thank you for including me. I will come. It doesn't have to be a reading day. That was awesome. And that's my report.
Great, thank you. I did have one question, sorry, back on the special ed audit. How long do we anticipate that process to be? Or maybe,
Our plan was, because it would potentially impact our budget, so we've asked for the report to be finished by October. So that we build the budgets in November, we have that information.
That would be
So
great.
that is why she's pushed the interviews till the summer.
Yep.
So she can look at programs in the fall, and she promised us a report by like the first or second week of October.
great.
So I consider that quick. That was not what I was expecting. I figured maybe mid-year, like the first of the year. So I think that's great news. I also, sorry.
I had a question about that too. I was just curious how we came to Dorsey as the person to conduct this report
Well,
or this audit.
so I was mentioning, actually, I work with a retired superintendent who is knowledgeable about people who do these kinds of things. And I mentioned to him that we were very interested in conducting an audit. And so he suggested Dorsey, and I reached out to her. And she doesn't work alone. She has other retirees from the field who work with her.
Okay, great.
I forgot to mention the Pine Hill enrollment, which is also part of my report. And you can see those numbers currently. And I don't know if there are any questions about that.
These look pretty stable.
They've been very stable this year. Today, we met a family new to town with 5 school-aged children, but that they'll be reflected in next year's numbers, but
Are they all Pine Hill?
no, 3 are Pine Hill.
Oh,
Yeah, so, but our anticipated, this children we know that will be moving in for next year, the numbers are the old normal, not the baby boom normal.
great.
So we just wanted to share that with you, and that's about it. We also, yes, we have included the personnel changes.
Right.
Any other thoughts on?
No, we'll provide more. This is actually probably the 2018-19 personnel changes, because those are the positions that have left and then the new positions that we're hiring, and we'll provide you all that hiring information in September.
Thank you very much. Any questions on Dr. Keogh's report? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, our FY18 finance report.
Finance report. So in your packet, you had your reports as of June 8th, and I think the new members, I requested you get the May, was it in there? Your May financial report, because I had a little bit more information that I did not replicate in the June, but I think was very helpful for you to have. I think you'll find, well, you work in the school finances are an animal in themselves. So any questions that I can ever help you with, let us know. We'll also provide you with a budget book. Once I get the final budget pages for the existing members, we'll have books made for you. We'll get those delivered to you so you can read them over the summer if you care to. But that's sort of the, the Bible that you can carry around and refer to, because we put a lot of detail in the back, and it's sort of nice for the new members to spend some time with it. So we will get those to you. As far as where we stand right now, it's actually been a really favorable year for Pine Hill. We're continuing to project a positive salary variance of about $70,000, and that's really comprised of post fiscal year 18 budget changes and the number of maternity leaves that we've had this year. When you have maternity leaves, they get paid for a certain part, and if they decide to take the rest of the year off, you save on their salary, and then you just pay for the long-term sub, but there's obviously, a salary difference. So that has benefited Pine Hill this year. On the operating expenditures, since we last met, I have increased that projected surplus from $30,000 to $50,000. A big chunk of that is special ed services that obviously we have IEPs in-house. Services have changed, so we have not had to have as many outside services for some of our students, so that's been almost a $30,000 savings there. That sort of goes against what you guys experienced last year, so that is good. So we usually try to budget what we think is going to happen, and this year it just didn't quite turn out that way, which is favorable for us. In addition, we've had some savings in our utilities. I will give you a more detailed analysis of your individual expenditure lines when I give you your final closeout report in September. Our out-of-district, we are continuing to see some adjustments, unfortunately negatively, in this arena. We had some tuition adjustments that had not been reflected in the financials as of last month, and we also have had some placements that have had some changes in services provided, some additional support services, some additional one-to-ones, and that now has been reflected in your numbers. So we picked up an additional $20,000 in out-of-district tuition, resulting in a negative variance as of June 8th of just under $70,000. The good news is if you see your positive operating salary in operating budgets, you see that it offsets what we were experiencing in the out-of-district, which means that we're not having to ask for any more money, and we're able to cover all of our expenses within the budget the town appropriated. The other, so if we summarize where we are, obviously we are in good shape. We expect that we will return some funds to the town come June 30th. In addition, the way we're able to preserve some of our circuit breaker, if you remember, we are allocating $65,000 of circuit breaker funds to fund fiscal year 19, but we're also going to have a balance remaining of about $60,000, and that will be a buffer for us as we have new students move into town that potentially need to be out of district, any in-district students who are placed out of district. So that is a nice little comfort level that we have in addition to the town's circuit breaker, the sped stabilization fund that they've set aside for you. So I think after our experiences 2 years ago, I think this is a smarter way for us to proceed, and we're in a really, I think, good shape for a couple or one or two unexpected things without having to go back to the town for additional monies. So we'll keep you updated on that. I did have a meeting today with our out-of-district coordinator just to see where we are right now, actual versus what we've projected for fiscal year 19, and we've had some things swing back and forth, but right now we still look like we're in pretty good shape. And we can share that information for you back in the fall. Are there any questions on the report?
Yeah, just for clarification, so that money, the surplus, stays in the special ed fund, in our
circuit breaker.
Right. So
right.
it doesn't
So our
go back.
operating fund does go back to the town when there's any surplus, but this is going to be money that we've collected that circuit breaker reimbursement
Yep.
that we didn't have to utilize
Right.
this year. You will notice when I report in the fall, though, we are limited to how much circuit breaker you can maintain in your circuit breaker fund. So we are going to be prepaying about $65,000 worth of summer tuitions this month. And then that way, that gets it out of our circuit breaker fund, and we're left with what we're allowed to keep in the circuit breaker funds.
Great, thanks.
And then I did give you an update, the summary table that we've been providing for the added district, just so that you can see where your placements are, both in grade and also type of school. On the, I noticed it says capital plan update. I gave you a really good summary, I think, in May of where we stand with fiscal year 18 capital, but I'm excited to say that we had a great meeting today at Pine Hill with Barb and Mr. Gemlid and our rep who is going to be installing all of our floors, and finalized everything, the colors, the layout, sent him off to order all the supplies because he is seeing a small crunch in the supply market right now, so we're hoping we can get that order in there so that this can be probably not started until, we're looking at probably late July right now, based on delivery, but he assures us that we will have it ready for the opening of school. But I think you'll see a huge change when you arrive. It's very exciting. I think that there's
Is it going to be a surprise?
yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, we're not going crazy on the floor color, but I think that's where you have room to go. I know, much to Barb's chagrin. But that's where you have the opportunity it's all the other amenities that we can change more frequently. The floors you're with for 20 years.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that gives you a little more flexibility as we move along, if we're going to be in that building for 20 years. But and then there's just a lot of fun stuff planned for the summer to sort of get some of the hallways a little clearer. We're getting rid of a lot of the cabinets that are there, and I've got Mr. Gimlet ready to throw away like 2 big dumpsters worth of stuff that I think will just help us breathe a little better.
It's
at Pine
time to
Hill.
declutter.
Yes.
That could be a
Yes.
great auction item, is an opportunity for parents to put in their own feng shui into the new decor of Pine Hill.
Or buy an old gray tile.
But all your fiscal year 19 capital projects actually have been bid on, secured, and will be ready to roll out. We're actually doing all the purchase orders this afternoon and ready to go. So very excited.
Exciting. Well, the auditorium looks great. The floor
Yeah.
is really. Fans were helpful.
There's more to come.
And there's more
I
to
know,
come.
the painting.
The painting, yeah, the
Oh, yeah,
painting
the painting.
will be
Little
done.
painting.
Started as soon as the kids get out of school.
And a little varnishing.
The stage is amazing.
The stage is
The
glorious.
plan is to work on the bench, yes?
Yes.
Good things coming.
But painting in the auditorium too, to just freshen the whole thing. And we have, because we had some maintenance money left, we have today sort of finalized a purchase of new chairs for the auditorium, so they'll all sort of match and be fresh and new and be on different, and be on different mechanisms, so they're on rolling dollies versus those hanging
hanging,
things.
yeah.
So you'll notice those will be either redistributed or the rusty ones disposed of.
And a
before
little
you come.
cushion for those longer school assemblies.
I'm not sure there's a little cushion though.
Like a cushion.
Maybe just a dip.
Yeah, it's just colorful. It's
No
so,
cushion.
but they will all match and be clean, and they have really good feet, so they won't scratch our floors, and so
Great.
we're excited about that too. Those will be in next week.
Ooh. Very exciting.
And just for the new members too, what we try to do is before the school opens, we usually do a little tour, just to see everything that's been done, and we invite you to join us, so you can look forward to that invitation once that's scheduled, and it's fun just to see what has transpired over the summer, and this will be a big rollout. We might have to do a ribbon cutting ceremony or something.
Exciting.
That's exciting. Thank you. Anybody have questions for Dawn? Okay, thank you. Okay, the Pine Hill School Family Handbook for 2018, 2019.
I didn't get to you in time for the publication, a crosswalk of what's been updated.
Okay.
So would you take one of each of those, please?
Yeah, when I was looking at this, I noticed we've had a few revisions since
Mm-hmm.
the last update.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Shifting,
So I will speak briefly to some of the content that we're looking to change in our handbook, and then Jackie will speak about the Pine Hill Promise, which is an embellishment to our core values and what we hope will be clear kid lingo as we, a task force that she's directing will help us expand our positive school culture and climate. In the handbook, and all of the changes aren't included, some of the information I don't have quite yet, so I've made notations. Some of it's procedural things that get changed from year to year, and others are some content that we wanted to dig into that was a bit dated. We start with representation of the school district's mission statement, and we want to add the school district's core values, which are important. In the letter to families on page 6, we added a small statement as a caveat about the Pine Hill Promise, and again, Jackie will speak more to what that represents. Faculty roster, school year calendar, of course, will be updated once we get all of our hiring done. On page 9, the access to school building, we will be clarifying some procedures that we'll be tightening up on in an effort to maintain real accountable access to the school building. We'll be clarifying that for families. The curriculum review cycle was updated just to acknowledge what is in process and what has been completed and what's under review. The discipline code of conduct we updated, no big conceptual changes, but there were some things in there that were dated. The custom of having children fill out a reflection sheet isn't always our practice. Lots of time conversation is reflective. The old adage of no chewing gum in school is no longer an absolute no-no. There are occasions where, for stress reduction and/or special treats, children or principals might chew gum at school. The CSA board members will be updated. There's still a couple things that they're tweaking out in their recruiting. We're adding some clarifying language around late arrivals and early dismissals, again, pertinent to how we'll be flowing traffic of visitors and guests through our school, and also including information about how school dismissal manager can be used in those instances to pre-alert the school. Page 31, homework responsibility, we rewrote with more of a child lens. Very often parents are accountable to out-of-school projects and extended learning, and we wanted to clarify expectations of why homework, when homework, and who homework in terms of responsibilities or expectations. Lunch prices, I'm not clear if there'll be an increase next year, but okay, thank you. School committee members will be updated as of this official meeting with your titles and roles. Guidelines for respect and safety were updated. Again, no big conceptual changes, but we're trying to put more of our expectations in kid language. I once had a student say to me in 3rd grade, a frequent flyer that I spent a fair amount of time with, Dr. Brown, what is all this respect stuff you keep talking to me about anyway? And so we want to look at this through a kid vernacular. In page 45, telephones, we wanted to clarify the expectations that students aren't using cell phones during the day, but also I imagine we'll be adding some clarification. We're getting a new phone system early summer, if everything goes according to plan.
This month.
This month, next week.
We don't waste any time here.
Next Wednesday at noontime, perhaps. And I imagine it will, I'll have some clarification about voicemails and reaching teachers, et cetera. So that's an overview of the changes, revisions, additions for next year. And if there are any questions about what I've mentioned thus far, I'm happy to speak to that, or Jackie can talk about the Pine Hill Promise.
I did have a question going through, you clarified a lot of the little things that I had noticed, but the reflection sheets, I understand that might feel like a dated process. Do the teachers now decide on their own how they're going to deal with issues, or is this something that?
It's part of this bigger conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, and the reflection sheets were in all ways when students were sent to the office for either repetitive behavior or more significant infractions. I mean, teachers certainly are expected to manage and motivate students in accordance with classroom community expectations. But the must do a reflection sheet it isn't the most productive way to have kids accept responsibility, reflect, and learn a more effective strategy. Okay. So,
I have a question too. Are you planning any communication to maybe to current families highlighting some of the more procedural changes that you're making, like the safety changes and things? I'm just thinking about for families who have been at the school and who've read the handbook. I don't know that everyone reads it as thoroughly as they should every
we will
year.
absolutely do that, and certainly I picture doing that mid to late summer. Our review of safety audit recommendations and specifically what that might look like for Pine Hill is still pending, but I am clear that we'll be routing preschool drop-off and expecting access to our building to be from the front entry point, not the side or rear entry point. Buzzing visitors in our building and hoping and expecting that they come to the office to sign in is in this climate of tightening up accountability for safe student learning. Some of those practices will need to be tightened up a little bit. So we will definitely communicate in a proactive way, but I don't want to do that until we've had a conversation about
That makes sense.
What that looks like before school, after school, and some things may or may not shift.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think I'm feeding off of you, or my coffee, or my energy. Or
Be a little scared about your coffee.
I'm radiating. It's really coffee.
Okay.
Just a quick brief. This has been weeks and months of work, but will you share the energy that's going into?
I'll make it quick, but I'm so passionate and excited. If anyone wants to talk at length with me about this, I am more than happy to do that. Essentially, there is we've called them a community task force, and I would say maybe, 2 to 3 months ago, I just did some outreach to see if anybody was interested in working on kind of a overhaul of what we're doing for behavior expectations and around culture and climate, and reviewing our core values and how are we really working with them, and all of the pieces around the kid language, and just consistency with behavioral expectations too, at recess, lunch, on the bus, in the hallways. So I had an amazing response to that. 15 people within about 48 hours said, I'm in. What do we need to do? We have representatives from the school nurse, school psychologist, to educational assistants, classroom teachers, and then myself. So it's really great. There's a lot of good energy around it. We did a lot of research, a lot of brainstorming as a giant team. Then we broke into subgroups. And essentially, for the purpose of this, what we've ended up with is the Pine Hill Promise, which you will probably hear a lot from here on in, but it really is just starts with "we are," and then we took Pine Hill and then brainstormed at length, traits that we really were thinking we wanted to see in our students, and thinking about what does a graduate of the district as a whole look like when you graduate. We were like, wow, you're really ahead of the game. What does the Pine Hill graduate look like? So it led us to starting with preschool. The word that they'll work on for the year as a focus will be playful, and kindergarten will be independent, first grade nurturing, and so it goes on. So we are playful, independent, nurturing, empathetic. We show honesty, integrity, and then for fifth grade it will be leadership, and we create our legacy. So by the time you've gone through Pine Hill, hopefully you've tapped into all of these, and then you're looking at leaving a legacy at Pine Hill. Where it ties in with the core values, in the back of the packet, we actually sent it on Monday, but since then, Monday afternoon we had a faculty meeting, and so now there's this version. And the reason we wanted to give you the updated version was the first one was the task force working on it and just brainstorming. That was going to essentially be the draft to kind of guide the educators who were going to be looking at it as a group at a faculty meeting. And so what they've done now is each grade level has taken their word, their promise word, our core values, which we haven't changed, right across the top here. And they've said, well, what will that look like in our kids, and how will we talk to our kids about that? And so what they're going to be able to say is, for instance, in kindergarten, being independent, if you're listening carefully and taking turns and following the group plan, how are you being independent but being part of the bigger community? So it's not exclusively these things, but these are just things so that we can share with parents the type of behaviors that we're going to be acknowledging in a positive way in the students. Every grade level has a color that they will be attached to, so that we can have some, we can have a spirit day. Everybody can wear their color. There will be themed activities, grade level activities, performances, skits, plays, poems, mentor texts throughout the year that will be shared. And so we just wanted to embed that in the handbook so people had an idea of what all of that meant. At the last CSA meeting, I shared with them that we would like the enrichment people to work with us and find enrichment that ties in with each grade level, because they're out there seeing great performers, and that would be great. It would tie in nicely with integrity. Let's get them in to do a performance for fourth grade. Then the next layer, thinking about the behavioral piece, we now are, as a group, we're getting together for a summer workshop day, and we're going to be planning a timeline for the year for all school meeting, what the expectations are, so that we kind of have a slow entry for teachers. And we went over that with them on Monday. So it's very manageable. It's just part of their day. We'll do that timeline, and then our ongoing work is around all the behavioral expectations for the different areas of the school, kind of like if anyone is familiar with PBIS, like a positive behavior incentive program for the whole school to be invested in, so that we've got some consistency. I could go on for days. I'm so excited about this, and I have to say, Laurie's working on this as well, and I would say the energy around this is really palpable. Teachers are excited, and I think that is going to pay off with the kids.
And it's a great cross-section of educators working on this, from specialists to the nurse to some of our educational assistants. So it's a neat cohort.
A Spanish teacher wants in. She's going to do some stuff from her end. Monique is laying eyes on this to sort of from her lens and taking that kind of that cultural, that bias piece. Have we left anything out? Because we're coming at it from our lens, if you will. So we're really trying to do it right, do it slowly, make it manageable, make it kid-friendly, make it consistent. And this will be an ongoing. This task force sort of isn't going anywhere. I said to them, this isn't like a group you join for 6 months and then we do it and kind of it's over. This is 10 years from now, this group in some way, shape, or form should still be going, and we should still be working on and refining and changing and responding to, so.
And trying to be very
Yeah.
constructive and educational in response to some of the, kids in the lunchroom these days, taking a much bigger, broader approach,
Yeah.
so.
And we started with looking at the social emotional standards. That was part of the drive for some of the work too, and we've really dug deep. We've done a lot of work, and the group in their subcommittees have done a lot too. So watch this space, because we'll be sharing more.
So Dawn, you see the tie-in with the new floors.
I do, Miss. I just said Beth was like, it's all making sense now. She was looking for a purple today.
Wow.
And grade 5 are they were essentially grade 5 are kind of the tie-dye, because we wanted them to, just be a little
They're
bit of
not
everything.
gray, that's good.
So I put gray there, because on other documents I was really, each letter and I'm just like, I can't keep doing that. That's a lot of work. So I'm just like, multicolor, So I think that will be great. So on the theme days, I think, it will really feel like a big community when everybody's wearing their colors, and so we're looking forward to it.
Can I ask a question about it? Have you talked at all with the middle school about their expectations and how yours kind of feed into that, so that 4th and 5th graders, as they're looking ahead, there's some common?
We certainly
Or common
will,
language?
as
Yeah.
we start, particularly with the behavior expectations, which we have not dug into yet, because we would want to make sure that we line in and we're feeding and we're creating, shaping a graduate that is going to be well received at the middle school and prepared.
But
So,
in the
yeah.
in the larger sense, the middle school's core values mirror Pine Hills.
Right.
We
so
did a
it's very
through line for that.
congruent.
Yeah. When we looked at we actually toyed with, should we shift the wording of our core values even at the very beginning? It's like, should we shake it up and just reword the core values that have been here a long time? Like, what's it going to look like? And then as we looked at them, and we looked at the new district core values, and we did that whole through line, it was just a really neat vertical alignment, if you will, of what we were doing. But we certainly need to, at some point, talk the talk with what we're doing. We're not quite there yet, because we've got more work to do.
The four principles behind the scenes, I haven't even mentioned this to you, but we've been talking about the wording of our core values is a little bit different on each campus. The spirit, the essence is similar, and we've talked about, should we all have the same core value statement? But we wanted to honor the different processes that school communities went through. I mean, the high school, through their NEASC accreditation, is required to go through, with lots of stakeholders, vetting of core values. So we wanted to honor the individual school communities and the symbolism behind that, while making sure our bullseyes were all, the big things.
I have a question. How are you planning to have the values continue throughout the grades? Like the 5th grade is still going to value being playful.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we need to emphasize
Yeah.
that continuity. Right, that you're going to have all of these
All of
things by
this.
the time.
So the teachers, part of the dialogue at the meeting on Monday was, by the time you get to 5th grade, you are going to be having conversations. The reason everybody has this and not just their grade level is because we're hoping, and specialists as well. We talked about, the music teacher, it's like Kelly's sitting there, and Kelly's saying, if she has 3rd graders, she can reference, in 1st grade, remember how you were talking about nurturing and kindness? Like, you're really demonstrating that right now. So they'll have this almost as like a cheat sheet, if you will, so that everyone throughout the building. As a side note, we are also making posters of this. We're designing, we had our 4th graders send in designs or design ideas that now Mr. Barry, if you know him, is taking to sort of the next level with the words and the colors. We're going to make big posters, and then each grade level door will have a smaller poster that just has their word in their color, and everything else will be grayscale behind that throughout the building. So that's, I think, again, it's going to be everywhere, and so everybody, hopefully, will be living and breathing these words and talking this talk with the kids. So.
Could be kind of neat too, just building on your idea, Jen, if we had something that was like, I'm almost picturing a Trivial Pursuit pie, where each year the students earn their color for that year, and maybe it's a pin or something that they have that it fits into, but by the time they get to 5th grade, they have the whole, they've earned all their colors and they have the whole.
So I will tell you that this is exactly how our first 2 meetings went. It was like, we could
So
do
many
this, and we could
ideas.
do this, and we could have T-shirts, and we could have down the arms of the T-shirts that the 5th graders get. We'll have all the words, and we're thinking, writing portfolios that highlight. They'll do a piece of writing at each grade level, and then we'll have a portfolio that they'll leave with. So, but it started like that, and we it was that put everything. I just was scrolling all over the walls of, the giant Post-it. We have a lot of them. Just putting every idea, let's just see, and it takes off like this, and what about? And that is when we kind of had to then say, but what are we going to do that is clear right now and simple enough, and then we can grow this to whatever level we want to, because there are so many great ideas out there. So I think it's going to offer us a lot of opportunity. So I hope, anyway.
That might be our decal for the blobby.
You're right.
I had one more question about kindergarten and the word independent. How far are you willing to really push that? Because then under personal responsibility, it says follow the group plan, where independent makes me think more of having more choice and more voice. And how much independence are we looking for in a kindergartner? Do we want them to be able to voice their opinion and have more choice time, and not as much maybe structured or directed?
Yeah. So for them, I know, obviously the wording changed on that, because what we had there, they decided the follow the group plan is language they use in kindergarten, and being personally responsible, sort of having that independence to know what it looks like to be part of the group and share your thinking as well. So I think there's a fine line there, right, of what that looks like. But they definitely want them to be sharing their voice. And what they don't want is them off independently, doing their own thing without the group plan in place. So, because that is the language they use. Okay, so the group plan right now is that we're getting ready for recess. So who is following the group plan? Which is a nice way to get everybody kind of, okay, this is what we're doing right now for a transition, for example. So be responsible for yourself, so that personal responsibility. What does it mean to get ready for recess? I've got to get my, snow boots on and my, so that's kind of where they were coming from with that.
Are there going to be opportunities or increased opportunities when it's not all group plan?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I guess is
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And again, I do want to emphasize, these things are
That's just an
certainly
example.
not
Right,
exclusive.
right,
We
right.
just wanted to be able to articulate something to parents that says, this is what it could look like in the different grade levels.
Yeah.
So it's not like, you can only do this, and if you don't do this, then you're not following the core values. It's not that. So that's clear, is it?
That's great, thank you. Thinking about using this at my house. Any other questions or comments about that? So, am I correct in that we need to vote on approving
The changes to the handbook, yes.
Okay. There are no more questions, and I would like to entertain a motion to approve the family handbook for Pine Hill with the changes for the 2018-2019 school year.
So moved.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, it passes. Thank you. All right, now the school improvement plan.
So our school improvement plan, I still have some culling to do to specify some benchmark items. There, depending on which DSEF grants were approved, there may or may not have been funding sources available. So there's more meat to be put on these bones. I want to preface by saying, over the last couple of weeks, it's the time of year where we sit with educators and have big picture conversations about their growth over the last year or 2 years, depending on what kind of evaluation cycle they're on. I'm sorry, is this mine?
Need a mic.
And it made me realize that this year Pine Hill has been on boil, and my goal for next year is that we're on simmer. And let me tell you what I mean by that. We rolled out a new math program this year in grades 1 through 5. Kindergarten rolled it out the year before, which is great. But a lot of intensity for teachers to develop pre-assessments and math learning games to go with every activity, and some of the summative assessments that we use with kids and realign. We rolled it out school-wide, so there were some prerequisite skills that not all kids at all grade levels had, so teachers were working furiously to make sure that they were supplementing instruction. So it was a great year, but that in and of itself was big. We finally, after a long gestation, 4 years, maybe 5 years, working with our literacy consultants to grow capacity and understanding of a workshop model for reading and writing instruction, we finally are ready to publish, if you will, our reading and writing curriculum maps. Lots and lots of assessment fine-tuning and alignment within grade levels, and agreeing on common resources that would be used for launching big idea instruction. We rolled out new science kits, which are every teacher, kindergarten through 5th grade, is excited about the student engagement with those kits. But those were 3 huge curricular initiatives and they weren't even our lead school improvement goals. Our lead school improvement goals were around wellness and cultural responsiveness and curriculum review kinds of things. So it has been a super ambitious year for our Pine Hill educators who've been navigating all of this. I'm really excited. Our school improvement goals for next year, which certainly aren't comprehensive of every thing, will be focusing on fine-tuning and bringing to higher level. But student wellness, innovative teaching, and a continued focus on curriculum renewal. And as you know, and several of you sit on our school council, formally or informally, we've been very focused on understanding how the tenets of challenge success, research, and recommendations can be applicable to having socially happy and mentally productive kids at the elementary school. And we've been looking broadly at the space tenants that are. I've left them all outlined in the school improvement plan because I don't want us to forget to keep our finger in all of those. But we've been focused on project-based learning and student use of time and purpose and role of homework, particularly with young learners. And the area that that we really need to and want to lead with next year is around climate of care and helping teachers to revisit how they build trusting, psychologically safe, connected relationships with students. And intellectually, we all know that's the plate on which everything else rests. But I think some of us are more intentional than others in how we do that. I think we're good at getting to know our students as readers and writers and mathematicians and historians and artists, etc. But feedback we've received anecdotally and through our student connectedness survey, which is just a quick little way of dipsticking that we do with our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders about whether they feel equipped to have strong connections in peers and adults in their school. And the results weren't as resounding as we would want for our school community. And knowing that learning is predicated on psychological trust, and risk-taking. We have an obligation to share practices from teacher to teacher in our school and look at some research, and so that's the intent of our lead goal around climate of care. Our second goal, in keeping with the very important work around cultural and identity responsiveness, making sure that all of our students are represented in the curriculum, and that the world around us is taught in an honest and contemporary way. We will be, this is something you'll hear district-wide, but we're excited to lean into analyzing curriculum and instructional resources and the way we celebrate teaching and learning, particularly through all-school meeting, and to look for biases and where it will be important to expand the resources we use. And I believe I've shared here, it may have been at school council, but looking at the mentor and anchor texts that our grade level teachers rely on to launch writer's craft or author's intent within different reading and writing units at the different grade levels. And this current school year, we took a step back, and teachers analyzed characters and settings for diversity. Family structure diversity, cultural diversity, socioeconomic diversity. And lo and behold, about 80% of our texts seem to represent white middle-class characters. So we're excited to lean into this work. An example I think of is Old Sherborn, the beloved historical perspective that our third graders engage in looking at colonial America. And we don't talk a lot about Native Americans. We don't talk a lot about slavery. We talk from the perspective of not all voices are represented. So that's our work for next year and beyond. Beth McCoy is leading us off with a training this summer. All of the curriculum leaders and our librarian, Lori Ryan, all of our curriculum leaders and department heads, K through 12, have been invited to help us frame how we will coach and support our teachers with this work next year. And then our final curriculum goal. It seems a little bit silly at the elementary level because we're kind of putting the horse after the cart. But our curriculum cycle review will call for a deep analysis of our math instruction program, curriculum alignment, what we know about kids, how we respond with regard to their mathematical learning. And we will be in our second year of program implementation, so it will be at the elementary level. Certainly there's curriculum has been in place longer at the other grade levels, but it will be a nice opportunity for us to we certainly have we already know many steps that we need to do, such as developing pre-assessments for all units. Not all grade levels got through that this year, but a larger perspective with parent feedback and looking at our alignment with middle school and their alignment with high school will be important and informative. So those are our three big lean-ins, which is not to say we're looking at the RTI process, how we're using intervention, staff to provide intervention. We're looking at school safety. There's always so many things we're engaged in, but these are our three big lean-ins.
Are you going to continue using the Roots and Wings group to promote cultural
Yes,
awareness?
we've committed, our district has committed to work with them for next year. And we're going to pray for no snow days on those.
Oh, that's right, we did have that.
It was a Wednesday extracurricular program at our school, so you know the Wednesday pattern in February and March this year.
Barbara, can you just share with the committee how you, much like Megan mentioned, the importance of getting the changes to the handbook out there so people recognize that these are things that you're changing. Is there a way to let the parents know, and do you let the parents know kind of what our big overarching goals, because that's what really these are. Is there a way for us to let them know and be sure that it's just not this document that's attached somewhere on the webpage, that they in fact become a focal point somehow, because I think this is important work,
Yeah.
and I think people need to be brought into the
I
conversation.
think you're right. I think it's things that a lot of parents would be very happy to hear, that this work is happening and it's things parents are engaged in and care about.
Yes, and through communications, through our open house structure, we usually have all parents come in and sit in the hot, sweaty auditorium to hear about, but making sure it's not a one-shot deal, making sure that we're informing parents about what we're putting forward for our school improvement and essentially what we value, right? Innovative teaching and wellness of students, and certainly there's an opportunity to do a better job of updating and visiting as a common thread throughout the year, our continued work in these areas. Yeah.
I liked what Jackie said about the thread running through these values. Did you say that, Jackie, or am I thinking of another? And that's really important, that the values connect with the district's values and the district's initiatives, and that the school improvement plan lines up with what the district's working on. One of the great concerns I heard when I came here from Sherborn, Dover Sherborn, was that people want to know that we're pulling in the same direction. That, we have great, bright, capable people, but sometimes we have these different initiatives going off all over the place. So we spoke about this as a leadership team, about the school improvement plans matching up with the strategic plan, and they did nicely. So I appreciate your efforts to do that, Barbara. But I think, as I mention all the time about the core values, and Amanda knows this from Wellesley, you can't really go anywhere without hearing about the district core values. You just can't. I mean, they're integral. They're woven into the DNA of that system. And I think that school improvement plans, core values, just need to continually be reflected in our writing. If we write to parents about something, referring back to these values is very important. If we write in our monthly newsletters or weekly newsletters to parents or families that these are initiatives that you're planning to work on, I think that goes a long way. I think people really appreciate it.
I think it's also, it's just, things that I hear from parents, it's, I think everyone knows that we have put a lot of focus on academics as a district, but to hear that in our school we're prioritizing the social emotional piece and thinking about the wellness of the whole student is important. And hopefully it's been something that's has been happening all the time, but it just feels a little bit different in a good way, I think.
I think we're responding differently now. I think what's part of the conversations that have come up when we started this talk is that, 10 years ago, we were responding from the social emotional lens differently to students because what they were navigating was different. If you just say social media alone, we haven't walked that walk properly yet, and we're still even learning every day what that's like. What we do to kind of support them in the school, it's not just social media, but that's a really good example where people can kind of hold on to that and say, yeah, I get it. I get that we have to change our response to our conversations with kids, because now they're coming from a different place. They're exposed to different things. So we have to respond with something that's proactive, because I think we would get, not just here, I think generally as educators and parents, we suddenly fell into a reactive mode, like, oh boy, like now they know this, oh, now they've seen this, and now they're doing this, and now they're interacting this way with each other, and it's starting to change. And I think we've got to, as educators, particularly in elementary school, just sort of take a step back and say, what is it we know we can do that will, in some ways, be more proactive? And I think changing some of what we do structurally around our core values and thinking about that and reiterating that is going to help that. So I think it's a necessary shift. It's not because, we weren't doing it before. It's just like, well, we were sort of doing it the old way, but the child looks different. So it's like, we need to respond to that.
In being, you said proactive, being intentional.
Yeah.
Being intentional.
Yeah.
And it gives our
But-
teachers permission to, in a community where teachers feel a lot of pressure to uphold very high academic standards, it gives them permission to remember that that's not the whole enchilada. And how we balance educational experiences for our students needs to be well-rounded.
If I can make one more point to Megan's question about communication and Dr. Q, your point about how do we get this communication to parents, one of the components of the strategic plan is developing a communication committee next year. And I know already on their action plan is the need for a central office newsletter to go out electronically to parents in the community with threads of what's happening in all 4 schools and how they're connected and moving in the same direction. But I think also out of that committee will come the opportunity for schools to share ideas on how to promote this either through their newsletter or through parent coffees. You know, how do we still engage parents in coffees and coming in for open houses to have face-to-face conversations about curriculum and social emotional learning, but also how do we make it available to parents who can't come, and we'll be, we're putting it online as a video, then keep everybody at home instead of coming in. So finding that balance and engaging everyone in the conversation about how to communicate, but still, as we're talking about technology, keep that personal touch to it will be important.
I think that's exactly where I was going, and that is that the parents have to feel like they're part of this process. There's nothing worse for parents to find out that their kids were spoken to about the new values and the parents don't even know what the new values are, or that there's an initiative going on to work on social emotional learning and the parents didn't even know that was a priority. And it's in fact, you just stated it tonight, it's a huge priority for the school. So they have to know that, which is in fact why we will do that district newsletter, so that we can continually tell people what our priorities are, and there are many. But we need to keep telling people, because that way when you address them on one of these priorities, it doesn't come out of left field. They're like, I know, they're always talking about that. This is a priority. Cultural responsiveness was like that this year. I think people got the memo, and that's as it should be. This is a priority for us, and we've made it clear that it's a priority for us. That's awesome. I think that's how you move systems forward collectively. And guess who the key recipients are? The kids, because they get it from all angles. You're going to do as we model. So that's awesome.
Thank you, this is very exciting.
So, Dr. Brown, you said you had to make some additions to the school improvement plan with the grant funding that came through, or can we approve it?
I
As it
just need
is.
to fine tune some of the benchmarks and action steps, but certainly not the goals.
Okay.
Okay, so we can still go ahead and vote on it now with that, okay. Does anyone have any further discussion or question before we proceed? Okay, then I would like to entertain a motion to approve the Pine Hill School Improvement Plan for 2018-2019.
Second?
So move. I forget what to say.
All right, any more discussion? No? All in favor? All right, great, it passes. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you for all that work, great.
Thanks, Barb. Jackie.
All right, that just brings us to, we have to approve the minutes from our meeting in May. Now, how does that work
Well, sorry.
with our new members?
They would probably
Not vote.
abstain.
I wasn't there either.
That's okay. You can still vote for minutes
Okay.
anyway,
Okay.
even if
But
you
you
weren't
watched
there.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
I know what's going on.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting on May 8th.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And then abstain. Okay, thank you. That passes.
And then the final thing is just for your reading pleasure, as Greg would have said. Minutes from the Dover School meeting.
He's not here.
Just some housekeeping, yeah, he was supposed to come. Housekeeping, you need to do your committee assignments, and
Yes.
we'll
Yeah.
have those, you can do those offline.
Okay.
But you should probably go ahead and try to get those done, because some of the committees may or may, like your capital committee, we will meet over the summer.
Okay.
And the building
There's some
committee,
additional
too.
ones.
There's a
in
couple
the
new
option.
committees.
That's the building.
Yeah, because
Are we gonna have an
that was
updated
Greg and
list?
Scott.
How about if I have the most recent list sent to you, Kate? Or
And we'll add on-
And that way you can distribute to the committee, and then we'll
We can add on the new committees, because you've got communications, you've got academic innovation, that they'll be
Start
looking
time.
for, start time.
Communication.
Oh, no, that was the region, employee
the-
benefits.
Yeah, that's the region.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can do
Yes,
outside of.
because that's just administrative.
Yeah, because we just signed, I think last time we just signed up and then
Yeah.
Greg
Yeah.
deposited us.
You're not deliberating, you're just
Yeah.
basically agreeing on what you're gonna take.
Okay, great. I will look for that. and
When
I'll-
would you like us to have that?
Well, well.
You guys all go away over, I don't know how many of you go away for the summer, but it's nice for us to have that in-house before everyone sort of breaks for summer.
Shoot
Just
for
the next few days?
Yeah, shoot for next week.
Yeah, yeah.
Next week.
Great.
So I'll have,
And you'll all be back together again on Monday if you
Right.
just need to touch base and, figure things
And the
out.
big hole is when
That's
Greg
fine.
and Scott are leaving us, which is.
tomorrow night.
You're hosting everyone tomorrow night, right, Dr. Keo?
Apparently, we're having dinner at your house.
Man, it's gonna be a boring Friday. That's not much to look forward to,
And
is it?
just a little,
Watching
the
that a
little
lot,
joke,
so
we had it on Tuesday night too. You'll notice that the newest members have brown nameplates. If you did well tonight, you're gonna get to graduate to the black nameplate. But I also have to add the reason why they're brown. Amanda, I'll attribute that to you. The woman looked down and saw Brown, Amanda Brown, and made all the new
Oh, no.
nameplates brown. So new ones are being made, and so when you show up in September, you'll all be.
Reading competition is what it should have
But I thought that was a cute little story.
Everybody can get a different color and represent a different characteristic.
Yes, I'd like purple.
Playful.
There we go. Multicolor.
So we need to adjourn.
Yes, all right. Thank you very much, everyone. Oh,
You want to
sorry.
move, we have to
I
move to
have a
adjourn?
quick
know.
question about agenda items for the fall. Because we don't have any meetings besides the joint meeting on Monday. We don't have any meetings scheduled. Will there be meetings if something comes up? What is the plan for this summer?
For
And then the
ideas
first
for meetings in the
If
fall.
we do have, yeah. Nothing scheduled for the summer
We do
unless-
not have anything scheduled for the summer typically. What we do is I meet with Kate usually in the summer, and we start to generate our agenda items for September. So
Send it through her.
I would think,
Okay.
yes, to send them to Kate. If there are things, agenda items that you'd like to see us look at next year in general.
Great.
If you had in your mind a timeline of when it would be nice, we'll see what we can do to accommodate that.
Yeah.
It's a good idea, though. I like it that way.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we'll come into September with something
Ready to go.
thought through.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, great. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you.
Very
everyone.
good. Thanks.